Oh, Twitch chat. Hello. How's it going? So good to see everybody. Thanks for the follows, guys. We have Pend Apollo and Sterling DC and Songfox and Seamus TV. Welcome. How's it going? I'm Abbers. I play video games on Twitch sometimes. I also interview other streamers about streaming sometimes for a little podcast called Why We Go Live. So that is what we're here for today. I have an amazing guest. I'm very excited to talk to them. I'm going to show you a little clip to introduce them. Theoretically.
But I need this person to move. I need you to get out the fucking way. Respectfully, whoever you are, I get a turn at the titties. Yeah, bitch, it's my turn. Thank you. It's my turn!
Oh my God. Perfect clip. No notes. Absolutely incredible. Friends, help me in welcoming Celestial Cassie. How's it going?
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. It's so nice to officially meet you and get to know you. I'm so excited about this. Well, let's just jump into it. Cassie, when was the first time that you streamed?
Oh my gosh. I guess that would be a little over 2 years ago. My friends had been basically being like, you're really funny when you play video games, right? And I was like, no, not really. And then the first time I watched myself play a video game, I was like, oh, this is funny for everyone else. This is not funny for me, but this is really funny for everyone else. So it's been like a little over 2 years now.
That's awesome. So yeah, that was the main motivation going into it, was friends kind of telling you to do it?
Yeah, I had a lot of friends who streamed. Probably everyone else in my friend group was streaming, and they were like, just do it with us. We'll play together. We were at the time playing a lot of Fortnite and Dead by Daylight.
Okay.
Lots of fun multiplayer games. And so I was like, sure, why not? Let's do it.
Nice. What did you do for your first stream?
Oh my gosh. I think my first stream may have been Dead by Daylight.
Okay.
So very much running around, screaming, trying not to cry about how scared I was. But yeah, probably, I think it was Dead by Daylight.
Nice. What is the story behind your screen name?
Oh my gosh. So I love astrology. I feel like most people know that about me. I'm not like the stars decide our fate, but I'm very much I like the stars, and astrology is very fun for me. So I was trying to think of something that related to stars or galaxy or something like that. And I was like, wait a minute. Alliteration is fun. I love C words. Let's think of one.
Perfect. No, I love that. I think
now, it could have been capybara Cassie, but I missed out on that.
I mean, alt account. There's always time for an alt account.
True. That'll be my next off-brand.
Perfect. I feel like I've asked you this before. I feel like you have Gemini in your chart, but I forget. What are your big three?
Oh, so Gemini Sun, Gemini Moon, and Cancer Rising.
A lot of Gemini.
I'm a lot of Gemini.
Nice. Cancer, Sun, Virgo, Moon, Virgo, Rising. So,
Ooh, yes.
Right?
I love the energy.
And anyone out there that's an astrology hater, just don't worry about it, okay? Just don't worry about it, and it's fine.
Don't think about it.
Don't think about it. So you are now an affiliate on Twitch. What was your kind of journey to affiliate like? Like, how long did that take you?
I feel like it probably took me maybe like a month or so. So I don't stream full time. I probably stream at that time. I was probably streaming maybe 2 days a week. So it wasn't super often. Affiliate does have how many days a week you have to stream.
Right.
And that was probably the hardest part to get to. Was just making sure that I actually streamed enough to do it. And getting that consistent schedule while you're working full time is also always something to navigate. I feel like people kind of underestimate how much it takes for someone to hit go live every day, especially if you work 8 hours a day and then you come home and you're like, okay, now I'm going to put myself out on the internet to be perceived.
Totally. Yeah.
So I think it probably took like a month and a half.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, really, in the relative scheme of things, not too long, all things considered.
Yeah, my friends were very, very nice to me.
That's awesome.
They were always there, so.
Yeah. Well, and you talked about it. You have a lot of friends that are streamers. Were you a person, were you on Twitch before you started streaming?
Oh yeah, I've been on Twitch for a while.
Okay.
And I was definitely on Twitch before I started streaming. I would say probably 2017,
Oh, okay.
2016 is when I was on
A
Twitch.
minute now.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a minute. I actually had a friend who was trying to hit affiliate back in 2017.
Mhm.
And she doesn't even stream any longer, but I will always, like, she was the reason I got on Twitch because she was like, hey, do you have Amazon Prime? And I was like, yeah, why? And she was like, do you know you could sub to me for free? Like, I was like, sure, let's do it. I'm fine with that. Like, what am I using my Amazon
Yeah.
Prime? Um, and so the meme of do you know what you can do with your Amazon Prime became a reality for me.
I
That's how
love
I got.
that. Love that. And any primers in the chat? Save it for Cassie. Use it in Cassie's chat.
Oh my god.
Um, no, it's funny. Well, and I think too, this is interesting. You having been a fan of Twitch and being there as a viewer, and then kind of transitioning to being a streamer. What was that transition like for you?
I think the hardest part for me was finding the balance between um, ever wanting to talk about me being a streamer because I very much had already ingrained, accepted the like, it's very weird when people go into other people's chats and they talk about their own stream. Like, that is
Hmm.
just Twitch etiquette 101
Yep.
that you learn very quickly being on Twitch because you see how awkward it is for everyone else. But then because I have such supportive friends, they would ask me, like, how's your stream? When are you going live next? And I was always like, do not perceive me, please. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it was finding that like kind of balance
Hmm.
that was, I don't know, that was probably the most difficult thing for me.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, I liked being a viewer first and then going into a streamer because I realized early on what I liked about streams, what I didn't like about streams, what kept me motivated watching
Hmm.
someone versus what I was not interested in.
Yeah.
So,
That's a great point. The Twitch etiquette thing is so fascinating, and I think this is true of any kind of like culture, kind of microculture that you have, but there's certain things that are just expected of you, whether you're a viewer or a streamer. That's really fascinating to me, and I think that yeah, in a lot of ways, having been a viewer first, that definitely gives you a leg up because you kind of understand that culture and understand those rules maybe better than someone
mhm.
else. When I've encountered too that like a lot of people just don't know or they haven't realized it. Or if they do a very good job being like, "Oh, I didn't mean to. I'm sorry, blah blah." But it's interesting these kind of like, yeah, these things that are kind of gauche, and it's like, no, no, don't
Mhm.
say, "Okay, bye. I'm going live now." Like kind of all of these things. It's like, not
Mhm.
not good etiquette, like you said. Um, what
I
kind
know, and
of?
if
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh, I was just gonna say, and I think it's very interesting that like it's the same way in video games as it is on Twitch.
Mm,
It's the unspoken etiquette that no one really wants to tell you about. You're just supposed to
yeah.
learn it. Um,
Totally.
so I would feel bad if I feel bad for people who just come onto Twitch and want to be a streamer and they don't do the kind of like homework of being a viewer
Hmm.
because there have to be so many things that you miss out on, and then I'm sure like a year later they're like, wow, I did really cringe things.
Right.
What
Right.
how do I atone for this?
Yeah. Well, and I think too, it's really interesting because for a lot of people, picking up on social cues and unwritten rules are things that like a lot of people, specifically neurodivergent people, like aren't good at. It's
Mhm.
just not how our brains work. So that's another element to it that I think is kind of interesting because it's really an expectation of you to learn. And also it's not necessarily a fair one all the time. Like you said, I think
Mhm.
everyone's experience with becoming a streamer and engaging in those kind of like social interactions, man, especially on the internet too. Like you're just
Yes.
texting, right? You don't hear tone, you don't see facial
Mhm.
expression. So like there's a lot that goes into it for sure.
Yeah.
What were your streams like when you very first started, and how has it evolved over time? Like how has it changed to what you do now?
Oh man. When I first started, I hesitated to play the video games that I played in my free time, which sounds really silly, but like now I've transitioned to playing mostly World of Warcraft with a little bit of variety.
Mm-hmm.
When I started, I basically only did variety and I never streamed World of Warcraft.
Hmm.
Um, and part of that was like I wanted to make sure that WoW never became something that like I associated with streaming. I wanted it to just be my little thing that I did on the side and like that was my fun time.
Mm-hmm.
Um and then as I kept streaming, I was like, wait, I can do both of these. I can still have it be my fun activity off stream and do different things on stream.
Yeah.
Um and I've lost a little bit of that variety. I don't play like Dead by Daylight or League really on stream as much. But I still do some variety with like Diablo. I play a lot. And then every October I break out every scary game I've ever played in my life and replay them all.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. How does it feel now playing World of Warcraft as kind of your main game, and not necessarily having it be this kind of like private sacred thing for you?
I think it took a lot of balancing at first because the first time that someone comes in and critiques like the way you play your favorite game,
Mm.
oof, that is not for the faint of heart. You're like, oh, okay, actually, fuck you.
Yep. Yep.
Like you want to be so defensive, and it's like, okay, I have to learn. Can I navigate both of these things at the same time? Like, can I still have love for the game and be okay with people criticizing how I play it?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so it took a bit. There was definitely a rough period where I was like, maybe I just never play World of Warcraft again.
Mm. Yeah.
um, and then I was like, no, it's okay. Because most of the time, I mean, whatever their opinion is, it doesn't matter. I'm not playing with them. I'm playing with the four other people that I'm doing a dungeon with or
Totally.
whatever.
Totally.
Um, so I think it takes a little bit of building your own confidence in your own abilities
Yeah.
to let other people watch you do it.
Absolutely. It is hard. I feel that so hard. Like because I play WoW too, and I play hardcore specifically. So the way I set up my bars is really specific towards I want to survive. It's not necessarily set
Mhm.
up towards I'm playing in a dungeon or I'm playing in a raid or anything like that. So random people coming into my stream are like, why do you have your potion on your bars like 5 places? I'm like, because I don't want to die. Like it's so
I'm trying to
interesting. I
live.
want to live, Claire's. Yeah, it's interesting too. Well, and from personal experience, and I'm curious what your experience is like being a femme on the internet. People perceive you in a very specific way, and especially being a femme in video games. What has your experience been like just playing with strangers in different video games or having people come into your chat?
So I would say in the video, like in games in particular, most people just assume that I'm masked.
Mm-hmm.
Um, even like last night I was playing with a random group and they just assumed I was a man and for I just don't correct them.
Yeah.
And the reason I don't correct them is because it's much easier to not correct them.
Yeah.
Um because people do treat you differently when you're femme. And like last month I was featured on Raider.io with Teamwork and we were all, like as a stream team, we were comparing like what were your experiences? Did you enjoy it? Like how did you feel about it? Do you need a debrief? Those sort of things. And I realized that I'm pretty much I'm the largest content creator as far as like actual size taking up space. Like I am a
Mm.
fat femme taking up space on the internet. Um and I also received the most trolls. the at least 10 to 15 probably, depending on how long I was streaming
Yeah.
on Raider.io. And everyone was like, I'm so shocked. And I was like, I'm not. Like
Yep.
I am very happy that you are like trying to support me, but I'm also not shocked in the slightest that people come in and say mean things to me.
Yep.
Because that is what being a fat femme on the internet does. Which sucks and it shouldn't be like that, but it's also something that I feel like as a fat femme you get used to, and you're like, all right, I have to have at least that layer of defensive up. And if I'm not in the headspace to accept that, then I need to not stream that day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Totally. I mean, when I first found you, like I think in your bio even it's just like fat, queer, like, and I was like, oh, done, like perfect. This is my people. And it's funny when I first started streaming, I didn't stream with a camera, really for a variety of reasons, mainly because I was playing hardcore and I was just trying to save my footage. So I didn't stream to be a streamer. I streamed because I needed to save my footage to get verified if I survived, right? But I kept my mic on because kind of like you, I was like, okay, I'm kind of funny. Like, I'll just keep my mic on.
Yes.
Maybe it'll be like a scrapbook for me kind of a thing, right? But I was
Mm-hmm.
very intentional for a long time about not using my camera, not because I lack confidence or because I don't necessarily want to be seen, but because this is a reality that, as like you said, as a fat femme, and I think even more specifically a fat queer person, it's like, you know that you're going to get targeted. And
Mm-hmm.
it's almost more offensive to me when people are like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. It's like, wake up. Not to be rude about it, but like,
Yeah.
wake up. It's not surprising actually. So
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting. Are there moments when you encounter trolls that it does hit a raw nerve and feel bad for you?
Oh, totally. But I'm also just spiteful and petty enough that I don't like to react on stream. Like
Mm-hmm.
I am very much a more composed person on stream than if it was, IRL, like fight me in the street.
Yeah, totally.
Like it's different when you're streaming. For me it's like almost when they hit a nerve, I'm like, well, I can go take a break. Like I need to go take a break because I'm not willing to let them see that it like actually hurt me.
Yeah.
Um but I think most of the time for me, the reason it hits a nerve is because there's 10 million other things going on in my life. It's not actually that I care about what this small person on the internet has said about me. It's that happened, including every other 10 million things that happened that day.
Yeah.
And I think that you can still be like a sensitive, soft person and still stream and you can still deal with trolls. It's about finding the support and the way that you cope best.
Yeah.
I have some friends who just, if they get too many trolls, they'll end stream, and that is perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
Or people like me, I'll just take a break, or I just won't acknowledge it. Sometimes I'm like, you know what? Especially on Raider.io last month, I was like, I just don't have enough time or patience. I'm just gonna block it and move on with my life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. What is the line? When do you decide to just block or ban that person versus, I don't know, giving it time or doing a timeout instead?
Um, to me, it's all about vibes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I feel like you learn over time, but for me, it's definitely the vibe. And it's also the people that mod for me. They're my best friends. And sometimes they see it first, and I'm like, well, you know what? If they thought it was bad enough to ban, I'm just not going to look at that right now. I
Yep.
will not be receiving that today.
Yep.
Um, and then sometimes they do not ban and they'll be asking them questions. And I'm like, okay, they're vetting for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just part of having the support network, the community. I think they're the biggest key to deciding like when I interact with trolls or when I don't.
Yeah.
They'll save me from myself, basically.
Yeah. Good mods are everything. Shout out to all the good mods out there. They're very, very important, very necessary, I think. Um, as far as people that tend to find your stream, like what kind of people do find your stream?
Oh man. Mostly right now it's probably a lot of World of Warcraft people.
Mm-hmm.
I I love the tag feature on Twitch, and I think a lot of people have found me using whatever tag that they're specifically looking for.
Yeah.
So as far as World of Warcraft, it's people who are looking for Mythic Plus, because I do lots of Mythic Plus content. But then also during Raider IO, I had several people who found me just based on like the fat tag. Like
Yeah.
I stream under fat, I stream under queer, gaymer with a Y. I feel like I say gamer
Yeah.
and
I
I'm
love
like,
that.
everyone needs to know gamer has a Y in it.
Like emphasis on the gay. Yeah.
Exactly. Emphasis on gay and then mer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I think using those tags has been kind of crucial for how people find me. Because I'm very much a person when I stream, I want to talk to people. Um, Obviously I still play the game, but my number one thing is talking.
Yeah.
I want to chat with you. I want to know what you're doing. Like, do you play the same games? Are you just here because, you want to see more representation? Like, I want to talk and get to know you. Uh, so yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah. You've mentioned it a couple times. Can you explain what Raider IO is and what your experience was like during Pride Month?
Yeah, so Raider IO is essentially for World of Warcraft players, mostly retail, but there's obviously classic players on there as well. It's all about your ranking worldwide in the content, the high end in game content that you do. And that site has features every day, every moment of every day. There is someone on Raider IO streaming. And Teamwork did a collaboration with them over Pride Month. So as often as we were live, there was at least one person from our team on there. Um, I want to say I was pretty much 3 days a week for every week in June. And it was a great experience. I loved it, but it's also one of those experiences at the end, I was like, wow, I need a break. I,
Yeah.
I need time.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot of people perceiving you. I mean, some people were on there and they would have up to, 1,000 people watching them. And
Yeah.
that's, as someone who is like half the time doesn't want to be perceived, that's a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. What is that like, this kind of idea of going live and putting yourself out there on the internet while also being a kind of maybe introvert or someone who doesn't want to be perceived? How do you reconcile those things?
I think, yeah, so I am 100%, if people do not already know this about me, I'm very much introverted. I am a very shy person. It's kind of absurd to me how much I like streaming, knowing that about myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for me, the way I reconcile it is that I am playing a game and people are watching me that also want to hang out with me. Like, it's just like we're hanging out in Discord. We could do this in Discord, but on Twitch, it's more interactive.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of the way that I think about it when I start streaming. Is like, all right, we're just gonna hang out with friends. We're gonna be here for a few hours, and then, we'll do it again tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. What is it about streaming, do you think, that kind of because I think if people didn't know you, they would assume that you're an extrovert because of how like vivacious and just like bubbly and like friendly you are in your stream. Like, what do you think it is about streaming that kind of, I don't know, opens that up in you?
I think it's because for me, streaming, I try and not focus. There's obviously a numbers aspect to it.
Sure.
Everyone knows it. Anyone who streams knows that there's the numbers aspect. I hide the numbers as soon as I can. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to know how many people are watching me. I don't want to know how many views I've got or anything like that. And so I just focus on the interaction with whoever is responding to me at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and even though I am very introverted, I think once I get to know someone, that's kind of my personality. I am a very bubbly person. I love to laugh. Like, I love to make jokes back and forth. We're obnoxious. We're a little bit degenerate. And all of that comes out because I'm just focusing on, okay, these are the people that I'm talking to right now, rather
Mm-hmm.
than thinking of it as like a huge, like, okay, I'm talking to them, but there's 30 other people watching and blah, 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 blah. You just have to focus on like the individuals. And I think that that helps me kind of get over the hurdle of like, oh, I'm shy.
Yeah. Yeah, that totally makes sense. I mean, it's interesting. The kind of streamer viewer interaction thing to me is so fascinating because you really do, I think for a lot of streamers, like have very like interesting kind of specific relationships to different people in your chat. And so the way that you get to know people and the way that that becomes a friendship or whatever kind of relationship, I think is so fascinating. What is your relationship to your viewers like?
Yeah, so I would say that I I more times than not end up being friends with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I that is part of going back to star signs. That's a thing about Geminis is that they're very friendly and they love to communicate and they love to talk, and that's why I think all of the people who come into my stream, I see them as potential friends. Like
Mm-hmm.
we could be friends because there are levels of friendship. You don't have to be best friends with every single person in the world, but I think you can be friendly. I think that you can have a good relationship with them.
Yeah.
Um, and it's about cultivating a community that has those same values as you, so that it's like friends.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that that's how I've always viewed people in my community is we can be friends. We can talk. If you want to add me on BNet and we can play games later, that's okay too. Or if you just want to sit there and lurk and we don't talk for 6 months, but I know you're just hanging out, that's also great. So
Yeah. Yeah. I like that you mentioned this idea of like levels of friendship because I think that like being a friend with someone doesn't necessarily have to be one thing. It can be different
mhm.
depending on the person or the relationship, right? Have you ever had experiences with people maybe crossing a line or a boundary with you in terms of this idea of friendship?
Yeah, I have. And I think you just have to be, if you want to be friends with everyone, if you want to be friends with your community, it's like anything else. You have to set boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you also have to be strong enough in yourself to actually enforce those boundaries. So if someone is crossing a line, you have to go ahead and admit that and just confront them face to face, hey, this does not jive with what I was expecting. I am no longer comfortable. You're going to have to take a step back.
Yeah.
Um and for me that went well. It was fine. We went back to it was totally okay, but there is that awkward moment and you have to be willing to have the awkward moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and this is kind of a theme that I think keeps coming up, whether we're talking about numbers or being a fat queer person on the internet or friendships that we form is like having a really strong sense of self. I think is so
Mhm.
important. How do you cultivate that within yourself?
Oh my gosh, that's the most loaded question in the
I
world.
know. As I asked it, I was like, I don't know how I would answer that. Yeah.
Oh man. Gosh. I think that it's something about knowing yourself. And I think you have to take a lot of time to do, you know, it's almost like shadow work, right? With like
Mm-hmm.
witchy things.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know yourself and you have to know what you're okay with.
Yeah.
And I think that even before you start streaming, just on a baseline level, you should have things that you are, whatever your boundaries are. It could just be one boundary. It could be that you don't ever want to go by your real name on the internet. And you can keep that boundary and you can hold firm to that. Um, and just knowing what you already want. And I think that that helps cultivate it. If you already know what your ideal is, I
Yeah.
can fake it till I make it. Which is probably essentially how I decide how I get comfortable streaming is okay, I'm going to fake it and then one day it's going to be real. And then it suddenly was. And I was like, oh, okay, wait, I do like streaming. This is very fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that like it requires a lot of honesty with yourself and a lot of reflection. So just like,
Mhm.
and it's not easy or fun to do, right? But I think like
No.
in order to protect yourself and put yourself out there and also be present and okay with like the situations that you're given, it requires a lot of what you're talking about. Makes sense to me. Yeah. Um, Going back to the numbers thing, I'm always very curious, especially with your experience recently with Raider.io and having this kind of like influx of people that may not find your stream otherwise. What is your relationship with the numbers and the algorithm?
Oh my god. The algorithm is a mystery to me. I don't understand the algorithm. The
Uh-huh.
algorithm is just it does what it does, and who knows what the visibility is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's across all platforms. That's Twitch, that's Twitter, that's TikTok, anything. Um but for me the numbers are not, because I don't do this as a full-time job. The numbers are not as important to me.
Mm-hmm.
If I was relying on the income, I would be much more numbers motivated. But currently, my motivation comes from how many people am I talking to? Like, are we having a good time? What is my feeling when I end stream? Like, am I happy? Am I exhausted? Am I upset because there were trolls? It's about evaluating that portion rather than, okay, this many people saw my, channel and this was my CCV, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Does that sort of thing ever get to you?
Um, it has, like, after Raider.io, there's a significant drop. You go from
Sure.
hundreds of people to whatever you were before that. And for me, that's anywhere from 10 to 30. Um, and so like I notice it, I perceive it, um, but it's not necessarily a deterrent or anything like that. It's
Mm-hmm.
just, oh, interesting. I have less new people to talk to.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, definitely. Are there any kind of like takeaways or first impressions that you hope people get from your stream?
oh man, I hope that people get that it's representation is good. And I want there to be more representation. Whatever
Mm-hmm.
that representation is that you can provide, I'm excited to see it. Um, and also just that you don't have to be fantastic at it to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I stream World of Warcraft. I am not the best player. I'm not the highest IO player. Um, but it's fun and I have a good time with my friends and it's fun. We can banter and we can have a good time. And that's the more important thing than being the best player or the most watched World of Warcraft streamer or
Yeah.
anything like that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think this idea of representation is so important. I mean, anywhere that we're talking about in terms of media, and just
Mhm.
visibility. In terms of representation for you, I know we've talked about being fat and being queer. Like, are there other aspects of your identity or your kind of cultural background that show up when you're streaming?
I think being fat, being femme, those are kind of the main two, being queer. I actually, when I first started streaming, um, I was out as bisexual, and obviously I'm out as fat.
Can't hide it.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, we're not hiding it. I've always streamed with Cam. This is
Uh-huh.
it. This is what you
Yeah.
get. But then over the past like probably 6 months, I've came out as non-binary, and that was something that I was very like anxious to do.
Hmm.
I wasn't sure what I don't know. I guess I wasn't sure what was going to happen or if that was going to be weird or you know all the like little things in the back of your brain that are just like, "Oh my god, what is happening? What am I doing? I am
Sure.
31 and I am coming out again. Like Jesus, this is a lot."
Yeah,
Um
totally. Yep. Yep.
but I think having that representation matters, and you know, part of what I want to show and represent is that we as humans are always changing, and
Mm-hmm.
it's okay if your labels change, if how you feel changes. That's still good representation and you're still helping someone.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, it's same by the way in terms of like coming out like later in life. Like I feel yeah, I was like I think I was like 30 or 31. So yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. In terms of being non-binary, like when you said that you came out, are you talking about coming out on Twitch specifically or just in the world in general?
Oh, that was in the world in general. That was
Okay.
for everyone. I just suddenly hard launched. I was like, "Hey, I prefer they she. And by the way, I'm non-binary. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk."
Mm-hmm.
And all my friends were like, okay, that's cool. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what I was expecting, but I was like, oh, that was way easier than I thought.
It's always
Great.
hard to know what to expect. Yeah. Do you
Yes, it
find
is.
that people who find you on Twitch, like, how do they interact with, I guess, that aspect of who you are?
Um, I think a lot of people just, I think you would understand it too. They default to she,
Yeah.
um, and they default to like woman, gendered things in general. Um, and for me, that's not like triggering. That's not something that's bad. It's just, it comes to a point where I'm like, okay, but also this is part of my identity here. Let me talk about this a little bit. And then you watch the wheels turn for people, right? And they're like, oh, wait, shit. I'm sorry, or whatever they're going to do.
Yeah.
Um, but I think part of me also being in queer spaces is that I have a far more accepting crowd than most people, I'm sure. And I acknowledge that and I do not take it for granted.
Yeah. What do you think that is? How did you find yourself in queer spaces, or maybe create a queer space for others?
I think it's just because I am unapologetically gay all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
The fact that my intro on your channel was me staring at boobs.
That's why I picked that clip. I was like, this is perfect. This is the one. Yeah.
Yeah, this is very much me. That's
Respectfully. The
it.
respectfully in there. Yeah.
Respectfully, I am staring.
Hmm.
And I think when you're yourself and you're talking about these queer experiences, um, you just end up with like-minded people,
Yeah.
and that's great. And I love that. I think I've only ever had like one or two people come into my space who I realized were not a good fit.
Yeah.
Um, and at that point, you have to decide what are you going to do. And I think the best thing for your community is to just block them, get them out, because you have to protect that space,
Yeah.
um, for not only yourself but for the rest of your community.
Totally. Totally. That's what I've found for me, is that like it starts with what is safe and comfortable for me first and foremost, because
Hmm.
if I don't want to be in my stream, what is the point, right?
Right.
But then it does extend to like, okay, once you do have a community of people, then it's like, not only do I owe it to myself to create a space that I want to be in, but also I want to protect the people that are here that I care about, you know? So it is work. It's a lot of like conscious effort. And I think it goes back to what we're talking about really like knowing yourself and knowing like what is okay and what isn't okay for you.
Exactly. And I think for me especially, it just brings out the like protective nature of me. Like I
Mm,
I am the ride or die friend. If you need someone who is going to like have your back, it's me. And so I feel that way about my community too. So if someone is coming in there and they have the wrong energy, I'm like, nope, goodbye. Like
yeah,
I will not be putting anyone through this, let alone myself.
totally. Yeah. Yeah. Um, as far as kind of queer spaces are concerned, we talked about it a little bit before going live, but can you talk about teamwork and being part of that team and yeah, just like explain who they are and how you kind of got involved?
Yeah, so Teamwork was started by Cell Hills, and he is a gay partnered streamer here on Twitch. And it's essentially about queer community, and having a safe space for gaming. We're mostly focused on Blizzard games, and that's how I found Cell, was through World of Warcraft. And so when I was like, wait, Blizzard and queer, this is my home. This is my
Perfect.
dream come true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they actually had interest apps out. And I had briefly talked to Cell about it. And I was like, hey, is this for everyone or is this for like big streamers? Because I need to know, like, before I invest my heart and soul into this.
Sure.
And and it was also, that's how I gauge whether I wanted to be in it. If it's not open and welcoming to everyone, then I don't want to be there. And he was
Sure.
like, no, oh my God. Like he suggested that I apply. And I was like, I am so stoked. I'm ready for this. But Teamwork is just this very, we're all about community. And I think the best part about the stream team is that while we do have a common thread of Blizzard games. Everyone in that team plays some sort of Blizzard game. Um, it's more about the community and the people that we like each other as people first, and then
Yeah.
as streamers and as gamers.
Yeah, that's so important. And what has your experience been like being on a Twitch team?
So for our team, and I can't speak for any other Twitch team, but for us, it's a lot of support. And that was one of the things that I was looking for in a stream team.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the opportunities are fantastic. Like, shout out to Cell for getting us on Raider.io. Like, that was huge. That was huge for a lot of us. But also it's about the community that we have and the support network. Like, if I have a bad day, I can go into our stream chat and be like, this sucked. I didn't like this, like we can just
Yeah.
communicate on that level. And it's people who understand. Like, if you're like, damn, I did the Windows update and my audio didn't work. Like,
Yep.
my latest, like conundrum, I was like, my
Mm-hmm.
sound alerts don't work. Those are people that I can always go to and be like, I need to vent about this really specific, silly thing that I know that you will understand.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Streaming is such a like, it's funny because it is so prevalent, I think, societally speaking, now anyway. And it wasn't necessarily, I don't know, 5, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, but especially since quarantine, I think streaming has just really taken off. At the same time, it does feel still like this very niche thing that people don't really understand unless they're in it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So to have that, to have people to talk to about things like Windows updates or like OBS crashing or like whatever,
Yes.
like it's really lovely, and I think it's really important to have people that are able to relate to that experience. Um, do your friends in real life or your family in real life know about your streams?
That is so funny. I was literally just sitting here thinking about this. No, not really.
Yeah.
Some of my, friends from before I started streaming, they do know that I stream. Two in particular, two of my very best friends, they know I stream. One of them interacts with my stream, comes in, talks. The other one lurks. But as far as like people, at work, like when we talk about things that we do outside of work, I very specifically do not mention streaming.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because streaming is also kind of an outlet to get away from work.
Yeah.
I have definitely come into stream and been like, wow, work sucks and I want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
Absolutely.
ready. And so most people don't know that I stream, like, just kind of in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of prefer it that way.
Yeah. And why is that? Why do you prefer it that way?
I think it's just this idea that this is somewhere where I can be very, very authentic.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't want anything to change that. Like,
Yeah.
I love how authentic I can be because I started streaming so much later in my life. There's none of the baggage of before. Um,
Mm.
and that is very nice.
Yeah.
That's not something that I would ever, if my mom was watching me stream, maybe I wouldn't talk about childhood trauma.
Yeah.
Um,
Totally. Yep.
which, like, I can joke about and I can talk about even with my family, but it's different. It's
Yeah.
different. And I like having streaming as that outlet that's a little bit separate
Totally.
from them.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. I mean, it's interesting, this idea of authenticity, and I really like what you said about baggage. I think that like people in our real lives, especially family, have a very specific image of who we are. And so
Mhm.
streaming is a place where I don't have to live up to anything. I can just
Yeah.
exist. To a certain extent. I think for me lately it's one of those things where it's like, oh my God, like I get real existential with it, where it's like now
Mhm.
there's this point of like, okay, are there people in my chat who expect certain things of me? Are there people who are perceiving me in this light that, expect certain things of me? And I can get in my head about it real quick. But if we go back to the IRL thing, like it is interesting because it's for me, my streaming space is really sacred. And it's a place where
Mhm.
I don't want people to come in and kind of pop that bubble. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. That is exactly how I feel about it. I don't want them to come in and be like, "Oh, but that's not what you're usually like." And it's like,
Right.
"Well, I need you to understand this is the person that I am,
Yep.
and this your perception of me does not change that. And this is a place where I can just be me and not have to worry about catering to your perception of me."
100%. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's really hard for people. Again, I'll go back to family specifically, but even friends and like people who are very close to
Mhm.
us. Like it's, I don't know, people either get it or they don't. And
Mhm.
it's not my responsibility to make you get it either, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah, boundaries, man. It's so important.
It really is.
Yeah. What is the line for you between your kind of personal life and your personal self versus your streamer self and the kind of person that you put out there to the world?
I think anyone who knows me knows I'm an oversharer. My line is very different than what I would ever recommend for anyone else.
Mm,
But I think because I see streaming as kind of my authentic self, and I think that I'm much more a personality streamer than a gamer streamer. And what I
mm-hmm.
mean by that is like people come to see me and the way I interact because this is how I am. And
Yeah,
I'll banter and we can be friends and that sort of thing, much more than my skill level at the whatever game I'm playing.
totally.
Um, and so for me, I think that I give a lot of my real self to what other people would call like your streamer self.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't mind that. That's a boundary that that's a line that I've let blur.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think when you're first starting out streaming, I would never recommend that. You have to protect yourself.
Yeah.
But for me, it worked out great and I do not regret it. And I love being so openly and unapologetically me.
Yeah.
Um, but I know that that would be hard for other people.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, I think for me it's one of those things where it's like I don't necessarily know how to be any other way and like I
Mhm.
you have to mask in life in so many other places that it's like this is not the place for that. Um and I also think that it can be very rewarding to be fully yourself because it attracts people who get that and who are on board with
Mhm.
that, you know. Um, but it can also be scary, you know, fully being yourself at the same time. I think because of the opposite reason for people who don't get that and aren't on board with
Mhm.
that, right? So it's a weird kind of balance, I think, to find.
Yeah, and I think you have to it's very vulnerable to be yourself on the internet.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
and that it takes a lot. Especially when you're talking about where we've both talked about the family kind of being out of it. You don't have the same support network that you would have if you just like
yeah.
were being perceived as the same way that everyone else in your life perceives you.
So true.
So you're kind of starting over from scratch.
Yep.
You're making and you're cultivating the support, and it's 100% worth the payoff to me to be authentically myself and have that vulnerability than to be something else, to have like a streamer facade kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Do you ever experience kind of like pressure or anxiety around streaming?
Oh yeah, I'm an anxious little bean.
Yeah.
I am just anxious in general. So
Mm,
there's definitely times where I'm like, oh man, maybe I'm not like my some of my worst fears is that I kind of get scatterbrained. So if
mm.
I'm reading that and then I go back to game, and what if I miss someone? What if someone's upset because I didn't read their comment, or I didn't respond properly, or I stopped mid thought because I got smacked in the face with a frontal. Um, like these are things that happen to me, and
Yeah.
I sometimes will just like wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, wait, did I respond to that person? Did I do did we have a conversation?
Yeah.
Um, and so I have anxieties about that. But as far as other pieces of streaming, not as much. It's just the general anxiety of pressing go live. I do think that is very hard. It's kind of like when I went bungee jumping and you go to the edge of the
You've
platform
gone
and they're like,
bungee jumping before?
I
Oh my
have,
God, I
yes.
would never. That's amazing. Sorry, not to interrupt you, but that's fucking incredible. Please
Yeah, no.
continue.
Yeah, so bungee when you go bungee jumping though, they do tell you, like, they're like, "Hey, you're gonna have to fight your, like, brain because your brain is gonna tell you not to jump. Your
Yeah.
brain is gonna tell you, 'Don't get any closer to the ledge,' like, you cannot do this." And sometimes that's how I feel about streaming. If I'm anxious in my own brain, I'm like, "What if I just don't? What if I don't press go live?"
Yeah.
You know, like, "What if I just go back to bed?"
Hmm.
Um, and it's that moment where you have to be like, "Nope, we're doing it anyway. Here you go, press it."
Yeah.
And for bungee jumping, it was just, jumping.
That's incredible. I'm very scared of heights, and not even heights, like
Ooh.
specifically falling from heights. So bungee jumping or
Oh,
like skydiving are like, no, thank you. I'm nope. Mm-mm. So that's very
yeah, no,
incredible to
I
me.
went bungee jumping in New Zealand, and for anyone who's not scared of
Whoa.
falling, you should do it. It's very fun. They do a
Yeah.
lot more bungee jumping there than we do in the US,
Yeah.
so.
That's amazing. I love that. So this idea of like kind of fighting your brain and like overcoming that voice that tells you not to. Are there, well, first of all, I guess, what helps you to fight that voice?
I think for me, I think about the consistency and the, like, okay, every other time I've pressed live, what has been the bad thing that happens? And the answer
Mm.
is overwhelmingly not really anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe there were trolls or whatever, but it's usually I had a good time. I did X, Y, or Z with my friends, I have a clip of a funny moment that I wouldn't have if I wouldn't have pressed go live.
Sure.
Um, and I go back to those things and I
Yeah.
have to root myself in the logic of, well, actually, it didn't go horribly that time.
Yeah.
It didn't go horribly on Monday. So why is it going to go horribly on Wednesday?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
just kind of walk myself through that process.
Yeah, absolutely. And then kind of on the opposite side of that coin, like what are times where you let that voice win or maybe even differently from that, like when are times that you know that you probably need rest or need to like take a step back and not stream that day?
For me, I can usually tell if it's one of those days where I don't know, it's like a gut feeling where you're
Mm.
like, you know what? Actually, I need time to read a book, or I need time to go take a 2-hour bath.
Yeah.
Um, those are the times when I'm like, okay, it's time to put myself first. And I think you just have to be really honest.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're going over, like, why am I anxious about streaming today? Is it just because I'm letting myself get anxious for no general reason, or is it because I need a break?
Yeah.
Because taking a break, everyone needs to take a break sometimes.
Yep.
I People who stream 7 days a week and don't take any breaks
Whew.
are going to burn themselves out. That is just,
100%.
and you don't want to ever get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are having that feeling of, okay, maybe I do need to take a break because I'm starting to feel bad every day before stream,
Yeah.
take your break.
Yeah.
Like if this thought is happening more often than not, take your break.
Yeah.
Take a week off, go on vacation, do something. Because you don't have to go on an IRL vacation to take a vacation from streaming.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's so important. And I think the distinction between I'm feeling anxious because there are voices telling me that like all of these things that like, don't aren't
Mhm,
real, or the things that are kind of enforced by beliefs that I don't actually have about myself, right?
mhm,
Versus I'm feeling anxious because really I need to like do something else to take care of myself. I think that for me anyway, it's really hard to like determine the difference between those voices sometimes. And
mhm,
sometimes I don't know until I go live. And I think that's something too that like there are moments where going live will like kind of help me feel better or like get over that, and other moments where it's like, oops, this was not the move today. I made a mistake.
mhm.
I need
I'll
to go
now be
home now.
ending.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Yep, exactly.
And I think that's important too, though, because sometimes you go live and you're like, this was not the play today.
Yep.
I'm gonna raid someone else and I'm gonna go back. Like
Yep.
I'm gonna sit in my little gremlin, get my gremlin outfit on and just
Yes.
game by myself.
100%. Yes, absolutely. You mentioned that, where World of Warcraft at first was this game that you kept to yourself and then you started streaming. Are there games currently that you keep for yourself and just off stream, or is it kind of whatever you're in the mood for, you stream or don't, I guess?
I honestly pretty much will stream anything now. I'm not super tied to, oh, I can't stream X, Y, or Z, because I want to keep it as my own personal game.
Yeah.
Which was kind of liberating, like
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wait, if I want to play 7 Days to Die today, I'm going to play it. And it doesn't matter that I am also streaming,
Yeah.
we're all going along for the ride then. Um, yeah, I don't really think there are any games now that I just kind of keep to myself.
Yeah.
There's definitely games that are not optimized for streaming. Like for whatever reason, I can't play League and stream it.
Hmm.
Um, it's completely a mess. But
Why
those are
is
like,
that?
I don't know, it's like a technical mess. Like
Oh, okay.
for some reason the swapping between when it pulls out the game itself versus when you're loading or in queue, my computer is just like, please don't do this to me.
Ah, okay, gotcha. Yeah, totally. Yeah. As someone who was very recently streaming on a laptop in a dream, I fully understand there's stuff that's like, no, it's just not possible to stream that.
Shout out to you for streaming so long on a
Oh
laptop, by the
man,
way.
thanks.
I cannot even imagine. I had no idea, and you said it one day, and I was like, "Excuse
Oh
me, you're
yeah.
doing
Oh
what?"
yeah, it was I don't know how I did it either, and it's so funny because it's like there's okay, so you were talking about the advantage that you had of being a viewer first and then becoming a streamer. I am the opposite. Where I didn't even really like I knew that Twitch existed, but I hadn't watched Twitch at all. And again, I purely made a Twitch account to save my footage for hardcore, so I really like didn't think anything of it. And I think in a weird way that gave me an advantage because there wasn't an expectation for me to live up to. So I wasn't worried about having a nice webcam or having lighting or making sure my mic
True.
sounded good. Like, I wasn't worried about dropping frames or whatever because it wasn't even something that crossed my mind. And it's funny because it's like,
Mhm.
I'll look at clips from like my first couple months of streaming and I'm like, oh God, why did people follow me and how did they stick around during that? And it's not even necessarily, that bad. I'm probably making it more cringy in my head than it actually is, but
Mhm.
I think it goes back to what you were saying where it's like it's this idea of much being much more of a kind of personality based streamer than a like gameplay
Mhm.
streamer because if you're in the early days, if you were going to my stream to watch me play World of Warcraft, which a lot of people were, so I still don't get it, but it was not a pretty picture to look at. Like I had literally like to make it run, like I had my World of Warcraft settings on like the lowest graphic settings possible, and like yeah,
Mhm.
it was a hot mess. So I don't know, but the reason I was able to do it was because I didn't know any better. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it's
Yeah, you
just
didn't if you weren't viewing Twitch, then you didn't have that expectation of like, okay, I should be streaming at 1080p. Like I need to
yeah,
be doing this, this, and this. And that just, I mean, that also sounds amazing.
yeah,
Like just not coming into it with any expectations of,
yeah.
okay, I need to do this, this, and this. My webcam better look this way, or I better get a VTuber, or, all of those things.
Yeah. I mean, my experience with that is it can all come with time. And I think
Mhm.
that there's too much gatekeeping around like I think like art or performance or any of that. There's too much gatekeeping in terms of like who you need to be or how you need to present yourself or the equipment that you need to have. And it's like not you don't you can start with whatever you have. If you have an internet connection and OBS, like you can stream if you want to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and while that stuff I think makes it a higher quality product potentially, I also really truly believe that there are people with thousands of dollars of equipment that I don't necessarily want to watch, and there are people with really shitty laptops that I probably do prefer to watch. And so like I think that
Mhm.
it's just something important to mind is that like we often get in our own way mentally, and I think that like expectations of having really good equipment is kind of this like capitalist lie. I'm going into the weeds now, but I feel like you get
No.
me.
Oh, I am in the weeds with you. We are rolling in the weeds together
I
because
love
I
that.
think that that's like, it's so important because people forget and they'll watch someone and be like, oh, but look, they have they have the green screen and they have this and they have that. And it's like, when I go to look, like when I am personally on Twitch and I'm like, I want to watch someone play games, those are the least of my concerns. I
Yeah.
want to tune in and I want them to be fun and engaging. I want them to talk to their chat. Those are the things that I find important, not
Yeah.
like, oh, what's their lighting? Is their
Right.
webcam like crisp? That's those I don't care about.
Totally. Totally. Well, and anymore, if that is something I notice, it's purely because I'm like, hey, how did you do that? I wanna take that.
Yes.
But it's not necessarily, yeah, the reason that I'm following someone or watching their stream.
Mhm.
Who are some of your streamer inspirations, or what kind of streams inspire you?
For me, I love watching how people navigate their games and their chat.
Mm,
So anyone is an inspiration to me if they can play a video game and also split their attention with chat.
yeah.
That's what I look for, and that's what I strive to do in my own stream.
Hmm.
Um, I just want to emphasize the community and I want to talk to them and I want to have these conversations while I'm also, playing my video game.
Yeah.
And so those are the kind of people that I'm looking for to watch. Uh, so even if they're the biggest names in World of Warcraft, I don't watch most of them because they can't talk to their chat because they're
Oh,
doing such high content that they can only focus on the game.
yeah.
And that's great, but I'm not I could watch a VOD and do that. Like I could watch a YouTube video of it. If I'm going on to Twitch, it's to talk to people
Yeah.
and engage.
It's
So that's
really
what I'm always
interesting.
looking for.
Yeah, I'm one of those. It's like I always think about the kind of idea of the commodity of attention, the commodification of attention, in
Yeah.
Twitch, because there's this idea of like I the streamer want you to pay attention to me, like look at me, and
Mhm.
I the chatter want you to pay look at me. So it's very interesting because, and I'm fascinated by lurkers because they're not necessarily that way, right? So
Mhm.
it's interesting. I'm so curious for the lurkers out there. If you ever want to not lurk and tell me, um, what is it about Twitch versus something like YouTube or watching a VOD that has you tuning in, even if you're not necessarily directly engaging with that person? Um,
Mhm.
and I know for me there are days too where it's like I definitely will be a lurker often, actually, now that I say that. And it's mainly because like I I don't know, I guess I waver. Sometimes I don't want that attention, but I still really love the person that's hanging out. You know what I mean?
Mhm. I think for me, the days that I'm lurking are the days that I'm lower energy
Yeah.
and I don't feel like maybe I'm having a rough day and I'm like, oh, I don't contribute to this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to be there because I love the conversation and it's
Yeah,
bringing me great joy.
totally.
Um, and I think that's it for me when I'm,
Mm-hmm.
just lurking around because I lurk in a lot of people's channels when I'm not live, but maybe don't have the spoons to talk.
Nailed it. Yeah, no, I feel very much the same. Yeah, definitely. Sometimes too, there's this thing of like I don't necessarily want to pull attention away from that streamer either, which maybe
Hmm.
sounds weird, but like if it's someone who shares a similar chat to me, sometimes I don't want to like, yeah, I don't want to pull attention. And I don't think that that actually matters, but it is something that I think about.
Oh, I 100% also think about that. And that was why I think it's still prevalent, but there used to be a lot more people who did the shout out command and it played one of your clips.
Oh my God, I hate it. Sorry.
I was not as soon as I realized that someone was doing that, I did not talk in their chat anymore because
Yeah.
I was like, I do not, I don't want to be perceived like that. Like
Yeah.
I feel like I'm self-promoting even though I didn't ask for this.
Yeah.
Um, but I very much so those kind of things are a huge turn off to me. I'm like, nope, I don't want to do that. Thank
Yeah.
you. Goodbye.
Does it make you uncomfortable to get shouted out in general, or was it specifically because of the clip thing?
Oh no, it's specifically the clip thing, and that is also because my channel is very much 18 plus. I would honestly say it should be like 21, 24 plus. Like I am very much a person who is unapologetically me, which means that my stream is a little bit unhinged.
Hmm.
And I love that. And I think the people in my stream love that. But also, if I go into someone else's stream and they shout me out and there's this giant clip of me talking about boobs and they like are very wholesome content creators, I'm like, well, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'll be going now.
Yeah.
Like what I don't know what to do about that, especially because
Right.
it's always a randomized clip. And so
Yeah.
I got a lot of clips that are not no
Totally.
one needs to see that.
That's my thing. It's like with whatever code they're using to do that. I wish that
Mhm.
you could choose which clip plays. Then I wouldn't have a problem with
Yes.
it. But the other thing for me is not only very much an 18 plus streamer in terms of content, and I wouldn't have it any other way. The other aspect of it too is that like I don't have the time or wherewithal to go through all of my clips and like clean it up and like get rid of random like everybody accidentally clips the like something at some point. Everybody accidentally like
Mhm.
clicks on the little like make a clip button and it's just like nothing, right? So that's
Yes.
the thing too, where it's just like a clip of me being like dirt, 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 like, and there's like nothing happening. That's like,
Mhm.
this, no one needs this. This doesn't enrich anyone's life, especially mine.
Literally, and that's almost always the clip that gets pulled up. It's
Yeah,
like me just sitting there quietly, like playing my video game, like very focused. And it's like,
yeah,
oh, what a great clip of you silently staring
right,
at World of Warcraft.
exactly,
And I'm like, oh,
totally.
please.
The worst, man. Yeah, I'm very flattered when people shout me out. But I also never want someone to feel like they have to because I'm in their chat. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it's again, it kind of goes back to this idea of like streamer etiquette and like not wanting to like self promo, but also wanting to like show up in people's streams. It's yeah, it's interesting
Mhm.
the kind of like tightrope walk that we do.
I am very much the same way in that shout outs are fine, but the way that I prefer to do them for other people is definitely a product of how I feel more comfortable. And that's that I shout out people when it comes up in conversation. Like if I'm telling someone to go watch classic, I'm going to shout you out because
Mm-hmm.
that's what you do and that's what you play. But
Mm-hmm.
if you just want to come into my chat and be like a person who is just talking to me as a friend, I don't want to make you uncomfortable.
Sure.
Like
Sure.
it's making sure that like someone is allowed to be a viewer, to just be a viewer, like
Mm-hmm.
that you're allowed to have that and like have your own time away from stream.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think that too is maybe one of the differences between someone who is a viewer and a chatter without the streamer component versus someone who is a streamer and also hangs out and lurks in chats. I think that there's kind of just
Mhm.
another layer of complexity in terms of how do you engage with this stream as someone who also streams.
Exactly. Yeah. And there it is, like you said, it's just this fine line, like that you're walking of, okay, I don't want to really talk about my stream, but maybe it's relevant to the conversation, but you don't want to be weird about it.
Mhm.
I don't want to be
Mhm.
like, well, last night in my stream, I did this.
Right.
But it's
Right.
like, okay, well, last night and I was playing WoW, wink, wink.
Yeah, exactly. It's so funny these little like workarounds because you want to talk about it and it's relevant, right? It's like, oh,
Hmm.
like I was in the similar situation because I play the same game as you or whatever, but you don't want to be like, yeah, it's yeah, it is.
Yeah,
It's a
go check
delicate
out my
line.
VOD. I did the same thing. Like, oh my God, no,
I stream
please.
on Wednesdays. Come on over. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
It's really funny. Um Something that has come up a lot is this idea of energy and kind of how you I don't know, how you gauge how much energy you have and the way that you kind of interact with streaming. You also talked about having a day job, which I do too. How do you balance that? What is that like kind of going from work to then streaming?
So it can be difficult. But I always try and give myself a little bit of time in between when my day job ends and when I'm coming to stream.
Mhm.
So for me, my day job ends at 5 o'clock, and I start my streams after work start at 6:30. So I give myself an hour and a half. And the reason I do that is because I need that time to like shed the day job,
Yeah,
like take a shower, eat food, just decompress, do something.
totally. Yeah.
Um, and that for me is a very, very important time. Like maybe I don't get to talk to everyone that I want to talk to. Maybe I don't get to, catch up after work, but I have that time for myself. And that's super important for anyone, I think, who is going to stream after their full-time job.
Yeah.
Um, just making sure that you have a little bit of time, just like that nugget of time for yourself to do something that is important to you. Make sure you eat, make sure you take a nap, do something.
Yeah, definitely. What is your day job?
I am a city planner, so I work with historic buildings.
Hmm.
This is what I went to school with, which is very different than video games. But I went to school for history and cultural resource management.
Cool.
So I work in local government, and I am someone who looks at old buildings all day, every day.
Awesome. And are there any parallels between streaming and what you do in your day job?
Oh man. Honestly, not a ton, but I guess the public facing aspect of it, I do talk to people constantly at my job. Um Working in local government, no matter what your job is in local government, you will talk to people. So do not go into local government if you want to be a hermit.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say that part is a little bit of a parallel, but other than that, not
Yeah.
really. I could not have picked more opposite interests.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to me because like the biggest similarity is the need to people. So if you're working and then going into stream, that's a lot of peopling for an introvert, I think.
It is a lot of peopling, but what's funny to me is that the peopling at work is far more intensive and stressful to me than the peopling, in stream.
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to the fact that I do have a community who always shows up for me, and I will always appreciate them no matter what.
Hmm.
Um, and those people showing up for me makes it so much easier to just kind of keep peopling for the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I like what Fenaria said. Streaming is the peopling we choose, and I think that is so true.
100%. That's the peopling I actually want to do.
Hmm.
At the day
Hmm.
job, I'm like, oh man,
Yeah,
please do not come talk to me again.
totally. Yep, that makes sense. Do you have any passions or hobbies outside of streaming?
Oh gosh, I love to travel.
Hmm.
Traveling is something that I think everyone should partake in. No matter how much you can travel, if you can travel to the next town over, or if you can go halfway across the world, I think people should always travel and experience new things.
Hmm.
Um, and that is a very expensive hobby. It's a very privileged hobby, and I know that. But that's probably my other biggest one.
Okay.
Um, so that's how I ended up in New Zealand bungee jumping.
Yeah.
So
Incredible. That's amazing. Twitch chat, we're going to come over to you in just a second here. So if you have any questions for Celestial Cassie, go ahead and type them into chat and we'll get to those in just a second here. Um, Cassie, what are some things that have surprised you since you started streaming?
oh man. Lurkers surprise me, which is funny
Mm,
because I like to lurk in
yeah.
chats. But I have a couple of lurkers who just like every few months they'll finally say something in chat, and it'll be like right before I'm ending or something like that. And I'm like, I don't, it warms my heart. I didn't realize how much it would make an impact on me that someone has quietly like just been perceiving me and hanging out and having a good time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that makes me like want a happy cry. Like
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
the idea of being someone's like comfort streamer is just it warms my heart.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, I think that was definitely something I didn't expect.
Hmm.
Um and then also just, you know, going live, how hard it can be some days was something I
Yeah.
didn't expect. Because, at the beginning I was like, oh, this is gonna be easy, right? I already play video games all
Hmm.
night. Might as
Hmm.
well just go live. And then, you get a few like months into it and you're like, actually, maybe this is also difficult.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. We kind of talked about this already. Do you have any pre-stream or post-stream rituals?
Um, I would say pre-stream, it's usually the like if it's before or if it's after work and before stream, I do like to have some TikTok time. And by that what I mean is it doesn't have to be TikTok. It can be Twitter, it can be whatever.
Sure.
I just want to sit there and just swipe through something. I just want to watch something. Um I just want to turn my brain off for a second and just consume some sort of media.
Sure.
Um if I was more of like a movie watcher, I would probably try and watch a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then post stream for me, I don't know about anybody else, but even if I'm very, very tired at the end of my stream, there's a second wind after cancel. Once I'm done streaming, I raid someone, I go talk to them, and I'm like, wow, I'm going to be up for another hour, you
Yep.
know?
Yep.
And that like bouncing off the walls time, that's when I try and do like one productive thing, whatever that productive thing is, whether it's, you know, start the dishwasher, do something. Um, but then it's usually like, okay, now I have to commit to the bedtime routine. Like, I
Mm.
better go wash my face. I gotta brush my teeth, that sort of thing, and making sure that I at least start it even when I'm wired.
Yeah.
Because if I don't, it's not gonna get done.
Totally. Totally. It's so true though. I get the same thing where it's like when you're done with stream, like there is like, yeah, I'll be tired, but like I don't know, I need wind down time, and it always takes like an hour or two to kind of like wind down after a stream.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm with you
Yeah,
on
and the
that.
more energetic you are on stream, I feel like the more time you need to wind down. You're like,
Yeah,
okay, I need a moment.
absolutely. Yep. Yep. Fenaria says, not a question, just want to say I love that shirt. It's very cute.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. T. Miller says, if you could travel anywhere, if money was no object, where would you go and why?
Oh my god, I love this question. Wait, mm, if money is no object, I honestly, I really okay. This is gonna sound silly, but I want to go to Russia, and I want to take. There's a train that goes from one side to the other side, and I would love to do that train ride. I'm pretty sure it takes months. Um, but if money was no object and it didn't matter that I would probably be fired for taking that much time off work, I would do that
Yeah.
100%.
Very cool.
Um, yeah, I love to see different things and things that I haven't seen before, and I've definitely never been to Russia. So,
Yeah. Do you have any favorite places that you have visited?
oh yeah, for sure. I've been to Sweden a few times now, and I would move to Stockholm in a heartbeat.
Mm, yeah.
Stockholm is just such a pretty city. Um, I definitely love Stockholm, and then New Zealand in general, just the entire country. If if money was no object, I would move to New Zealand too. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
one house in Stockholm, one house in,
There you go.
Auckland.
Yeah.
There we go.
You have a summer home and a winter home. It's perfect.
Exactly. I love this. Actually, this is perfect.
This is the plan. This is the retirement plan. Yeah.
Exactly.
Steamer says, fun. I've always wanted to ride a fancy train. Yeah, I love the idea of like train travel across the country.
Europeans have it down pat, the like
Yep.
train travel. And I came back to the US after I rode the train in Sweden a few times, and I was like, why am I doing this? Especially where I live. I live in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
You either have a car or you do not go anywhere.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
my city has no public transit
Yep.
whatsoever.
Yep.
Um and after I go traveling, I'm like, "Wow, why did I come back here?"
Mm,
Like,
yeah.
what is this?
Ah, that's so hard. I'm in Colorado, and like in Denver, like in a bigger city, there is public transportation, but it's not great.
Yeah.
So I'm very much with you. It's like really in terms of like accessibility, like you really do need a car when you're this far out west in the United States. I think like it seems like
Mhm.
the East Coast has it down a little bit more, but like not nearly to the extent as Europe, I think.
Oh yeah. And when I grew up on the East Coast and then I moved to Colorado, and I remember when I moved to Colorado, there was a moment where I was like, I am so isolated. And my friends
Mm-hmm.
were like, what do you mean that you're isolated? And I
Yeah.
was like, I lived in North Carolina, and I was like, if I drive 6 hours, I could be in DC.
Mm-hmm.
I can go on a vacation. I can go to the beach. I can go to DC. I can drive down to Florida if I really want and, fuck around and find out. But like when you're in, say, like Denver, if you drive 6 hours, you're just kind of, you're in the middle of nowhere,
Yep.
like
Yep.
where else are you going?
Absolutely.
And that was very hard for me to process when I left the East
Yeah.
Coast, was just that like feeling of isolation of like, well, where am I going to go? Wyoming?
Right.
No, I'm
Right.
not going to Wyoming.
No, thank you. Let's see. Villain says, what's your favorite? Oh, we just talked about this. What's your favorite place you've ever visited?
Oh yeah, that would either be Stockholm or New Zealand.
Mhm.
New Zealand, I actually had my 21st birthday there.
Oh, that's
Um,
fun.
it was very fun for me because their drinking age there was 18. But we still ran around in a group and we were like, haha, we're the silly American girls. Like,
Yeah.
sorry, but I'm turning 21. Let's go rampant on this poor city.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Just kind of the opposite. Are there any places that you're like, nope, wouldn't go there again? Not my thing.
Um, when I moved from North Carolina to Colorado, we drove the entire way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I so sorry if anyone lives there. I would never go back to Kansas. Kansas is not a place that I want to go back. There was not a lot to do,
Yeah.
and it was just, when you talk about isolated, driving through Kansas on the highway at night and just seeing the windmills that are like lit up red. No, thank you.
Yeah.
No, thank
Yeah.
you.
Not a whole lot in Kansas, honestly. Yeah. Yeah. Cassie, do you have any advice for your younger streamer self?
Oh man. Start sooner. You're actually gonna love it.
Yeah.
It took a long time for people to convince me to start. And I think that was rooted in a lot of like self-doubt.
Yeah.
And I think just being able to tell my younger self, like, hey, you can do this. It's actually really fun. You're gonna have a great time. Just that reassurance is what would push me over the edge to start earlier.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. Twitch chat, thank you for your questions. Appreciate you. Um, Cassie, do you have any goals or projects coming up?
Oh man. Let's see, what am I doing? I I know I'm like, huh? I know that with teamwork, I think we're doing another hardcore challenge very soon.
Love it.
And my goal is to not die at level, 9, 10, whatever it was.
Yeah.
That's the very sad level I died at.
It happens. You're good.
I I want to win.
You
I want to
will.
win that challenge.
I
That's
believe in
my
you.
goal.
I'm rooting for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nice. Well, with that, we're kind of gonna wrap things up here. I have a final little 10 question questionnaire for you. So this is 10 final questions inspired by James Lipton, Bernard Pivot, and CJ the X. So just kind of like first thing that comes to your mind, quick and dirty.
Oh
Celestial
gosh.
Cassie.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Which game or activity do you love to stream the most?
Oh, World of Warcraft.
Which game or activity do you hate to stream the most?
Oh gosh. Hate. Super Animal Royale.
What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Communication.
What turns you off creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Oh gosh. Dishonesty.
Which streamer would you like to meet most in real life?
You.
Come on! I would love to meet you. We gotta hang out. We'll make. Oh, oh gosh. Oh, jeez. What is something you would like to try on stream but never have?
Oh man, I would like to do a cooking stream. I think
Yeah.
that'd be fun.
Yeah. What is something you would never want to do on stream?
Oh my gosh. I don't want to cry on stream.
Mm-hmm. Too late for me. Why do you go live?
I go live for the community, honestly, for the sense of support, both giving and receiving.
Yeah. Follow-up question. Why do you really go live?
Oh my gosh. Because it is a way to connect, and I never want to be alone.
Final question. You're on your deathbed. You know exactly how much time you have. You have any and all resources available to you. Viewer count doesn't matter. Commercial viability, like none of that matters. What do you do for your final stream on Earth?
Oh my god. I'm gonna play WoW in in a hot tub.
Ooh, I love that.
Hot tub stream, but World of Warcraft.
Love it. Perfect. Okay, well, you're not gonna die soon. Knock on wood. But everyone should follow Cassie so that they can see that.
So that one day everyone gets a WoW stream from the hot tub that I don't have.
For real though, please, please, please go follow Celestial Cassie on all of the things. You are truly one of my favorite people that I've met on here. You're just like, you're so fun and so cool, and I'm so honored that I got a chance to talk to you and get to know you more. Yes. So thank you
so much for having me.
Oh my God,
it's
pleasure.
Been so fun.
Yay, good. Well, with that, I'm going to put the pressure on you, but no pressure. I would love to send the love off to somebody that you know. Is there anyone online that you'd like us to raid?
Oh my gosh, yes. So pinned _Apollo.
Let me see. I think they followed me earlier. There we go.
Yes. He is actually raiding tonight.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, so they're doing heroic raid night.
Is this someone that you raid with usually?
No, he is EU, but he is one of my mods, and I love him dearly.
Perfect. Okay. Well, we're gonna go hang out with Pend Apollo. Please, here's a little here's a little raid message for you. So let them know that Celestial Cassie sent us. Here's the thing. I can do stuff.
You're doing it? We've got streamer things
we got it. Copy the message. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thanks again for the follows. I appreciate you. If you like this, we try to do Why We Go Live every other Sunday here. And you can follow Why We Go Live on all the socials for updates and more information. Cassie, thank you again. This was lovely.
Thank you.
All right, we're raiding. We're doing it. It's happening. And go. And we're not live anymore.